But speaking of physicals and people being healthy and not healthy, our riders, what's the word, Dave? Yesterday, the talk was social media. You had the post sportscage.com of losing offensive linemen. Where do things stand today, Tuesday here after the long weekend? What can we tell people?
Well, not a whole heck of a lot better, Barney, to tell you the truth, as Sean McEwen is still going to be out for a while, and I think that's a long-term injury when it comes to Sean, so that's a real unfortunate break. The other one is that Philippe Gagnon, who was one of two players that was kind of splitting reps at center just to kind of get a feel for where we might move forward. He was in a sling today and is going to undergo more imaging. So that's a tough couple of ones on the offensive line, and unfortunately, the list gets longer from there.
Noah Zaire back we talked last week. I said, I'm sure that on the exit, they said, hey, don't go too far. We might be calling you. And it was a few days and they buzzed him. He's back in the fold.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could see the pain in Coach Mace's eyes when he was talking about Noah Zaire and having to make that difficult decision to move on from him. But he said right then and there, you know what? His phone is going to ring. He's too good of a player not to have somebody calling him up. And it just so happens that it was his team that had a need, so they called him up. So that might be an indication really strongly, right, of how big that injury is indeed to Sean McEwen, that the Riders are going to go ahead and bolster their Canadians along the offensive line with Noah Zaire.
When I read on Twitter, okay, so we knew about McEwen and then the Gagnon thing, and I set my phone down on the kitchen counter and I'm like, this is why, can we just pump the brakes on the Grey Cup talk here in the preseason? Because we're dropping Canadian offensive linemen. Once again, for whatever reason, I don't know why we're snake bit when it comes to this, but we don't want anybody to be hurt. But if it was American offensive linemen, that's one thing. But Canadian offensive linemen, that's a whole other story. Then you're changing ratios potentially. And it's funny, the McEwen thing to be like, nah, of course it's not going to be he'll be back in 4 days. No, it's probably going to be long term. And then Gagnon, and then you don't know. And then Noah Zaire, you're bringing him back in. And then what if something else? And then the shuffle. And didn't I see today, Charbel de Beer went down at practice? Canadian D-line? Like, what was the situation there?
Well, to start with the national offensive lineman, you're right? Like, again, making a big, bold statement at this time of year is somewhat ludicrous because you do need a lot of things to go your way. And when it does come to Canadian offensive linemen, I give Jeremy O'Day credit, right? Like, he's gone ahead and he's got a nice group that is built up and is continuing to grow and develop together. So the sky isn't falling when it comes to Canadian offensive linemen. For Charbel de Beer, man, it was tough because the Riders went and put pads on halfway through the workout today, and Charbel went down, hobbled off to the sideline, and then went back into the locker room, came out later in civvies at the end of it. Of course, you recall he came off, or is coming off, that season-ending knee injury from a year ago. So, you know what? He is such a great guy, and you want good things to happen to good people, and unfortunately just got rolled up and caught up a little bit in a bit of a skirmish. And again, I'm not talking fight. I'm just talking, you know what? It was a physical portion of the practice, and it just didn't go his way. And so he was on the sideline. He was trying to jog it off. He was stretching it out, trying to feel it both ways. So we hope that it's nothing serious, hope that it's just a tweak, but he did not return to practice today.
Coach Mace, Alan, we got the audio. You have a chance to talk to Coach Mace about practice today.
I think the compete level was high for sure. Pleased with how those guys responded to the net. Another back and forth. Offense had some big plays. I thought run game wise as well, they did a good job. But the compete level was high.
All right. We just talked about it. Can we get the Noah Zaire? Mace does comment on the re-signing of Noah Zaire.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like we talked about, some hard decisions when it came down to end up letting him go off the last cuts. But as I spoke to, man, we still think highly of the kid, and you know, happy as hell that he's able to come back, and for him, just another opportunity to go ahead and push forward and still stay on the same journey that he had for himself and his mind. And who knows, maybe just a little bit of recharge for him. So happy as hell to have him back. I know his brothers are happy to have him back, just like us coaches.
Well, and the one thing you heard Coach May saying there, gentlemen, was the fact that it was a bit of a recharge for Noah. I think it's also a rejuvenation, right? Because, hey, you know what? It happened once. I got to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I think that's fueled Noah today as he looked like a bit of a different player. And speaking of a different player this year, A.J. Allen, right? We talked so much about Roland Milligan Jr. did last year in special teams and defensively. But A.J. Allen was actually tied for the special teams lead when it came to tackles in the Canadian Football League a year ago. It earned himself an opportunity with the Denver Broncos, and it's earned him more of an opportunity this year on the linebacking core for your Rough Rider defense. And I asked Coach Mace what he's seen from A.J. Allen so far.
You know, he's earned the right. You know, certainly we know what he can do on the special teams aspect of him. But you know, throwing him out there on defense, you know, he's a really good blitzer. He's got great hands in his pass rush as well. And you know, obviously being able to float out there in coverage with the pick six that he had last year. So again, it's an opportunity for him to kind of, you know, get his reps and run away and solidify, you know, his spot as far as the depth on the defense. So yeah, man, been pleased with AJ.
And one move maybe that is, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say last year, you know, and maybe this year we're gonna see it too. We had so many people moving around the offensive line, you know, and we had defensive guys coming to play offensive line and all that. There's some movement going on the defensive side as well.
Well, absolutely, right? So if you can add A.J. Allen into your linebacking core, that's a huge plus because, of course, that's where Adam Auclair ended up starting at the end of last year. Again, there was a big battle for that job last year in camp, and it hasn't been handed to A.J. Allen, but there's another name that's in the mix. Jaden Dahlke, who was the week one starter at safety last year, has been asked to transform and become a linebacker, and Coach Mace talked about that.
You know, he's earned the right. You know, certainly we know what he can do on the special teams aspect of him. But you know, throwing him out there on defense, you know, he's a really good blitzer. He's got great hands in his pass rush as well. And you know, obviously being able to float out there in coverage with the pick six that he had last year. So again, it's an opportunity for him to kind of, you know, get his reps and run away and solidify, you know, his spot as far as the depth on the defense. So yeah, man, been pleased with AJ.
Was A.J. Allen.
Yeah. We had a little confusion here on this side. This is, you got it? This is Coach Mace talking on Dahlke moving to linebacker.
We got a couple guys, you know, be it the linebacker, really everywhere on defense who can play multiple spots, which really helps us, I think, bodes well. For one, for him, his communication and understanding, you know, what the back end's doing. But, you know, being able to insert him at a linebacker from here and there, certainly, you know, even if it's not a sub package, you can do a little bit more with him in there from that standpoint. So, again, another great special teams player. Certainly, you know, at the spot that he was playing today, he, you know, even when he played Sam too, I mean, he can blitz, he can hit, he's going to run all day. So, yeah, always pleased with Dulks.
Okay, that's new, and I'm taking a little time to absorb it because Dahlke last year seemed to play well. It seemed to be the dumb penalties that ended up costing him playing time. Got him on the sideline, and eventually by the end of the season worked his way back in. Just wondering about his size because he's not linebacker. So like A.J. Allen looks like a linebacker. Like, dude's a specimen when it comes to that. So which linebacker position do they have Dahlke playing? Sam, middle. What's he doing? Because Jameer Thurman's in the middle.
Yeah, Jameer Thurman's in the middle. C.J. Rivas is on the other side. And then, of course, you've got that will linebacker spot open. That's where Adam Auclair was. And so, again, if you're going to start a Canadian, you got to make sure you've got depth in that Canadian position, right? Okay. And when it comes to Jaden Dahlke, yeah, a little bit was the penalties of the start of last year, but it was also the acquisition of Marcus Sales, right? So you'll recall back in week number 1, the corner spot was Nelson Lacombo while safety was Jaden Dahlke. Now you can go ahead and you can mix that around. Now, Jaden has added some muscle mass onto his body. He hasn't lost any speed, but he's a bigger guy from what I can tell. And that's a big, big plus right now for the Rough Riders.
On Friday, we were chatting. It was all about the green and white game on Saturday, and maybe we can get into this more in depth. Just real quick, who was an offensive star that caught your eye, and who on the defense at that green and white game caught your eye?
Antoine Brooks Jr. on defense, I thought stood out. He had another solid showing. He's been terrific all camp, starting way back with rookie camp. He's done terrifically well and seems to fit into this system marvelously. Offensively, the quarterbacks kind of took turns a little bit showing off. It was a real good day for Jake Mayer, but the receiver that stood out by far was Deshaun Mims. He had 5 catches, 2 touchdown receptions, and he did well. And unfortunately for Deshaun, he's now again on the sidelines as he got banged up the other day. So he missed all of today's workout and left yesterday's workout early. So tough for the Regina Ram product, but he definitely hands down best receiver during Green and White Day.
Oh, can we just leave it alone on the injury front? Okay, this is actually funny. Prairie Land Rentals text line. Steven's kind of echoing what a lot of people are thinking and few text messages along the same lines here. He said, we only signed a few free agent acquisitions in the offseason, which is great, but just days into training camp, they're likely done for the season. Are these guys not training in the offseason? I don't think that's the case. Last year, it was 14 different O-linemen, starting quarterback and a handful of receivers and a D-lineman. The Bombers, for example, have had as many injuries in the last decade than we've had in less than a week, maybe a little bit off. What's going on here? People are frustrated with the injuries, and it's professional sports. It's a contact sport. It's going to happen. It's not golf where, 4 guys got tendonitis all at once. It's tough. But the frustration, and then to Maz's point, it's like we have so much excitement going into this year and all that. And it's like, I think we are forgetting, me included, on how hard and grueling this season is. We haven't seen AJ Ouellette take a number of licks and how he runs and jumps and all that. Is he playing every game this year? I would hammer the no.
I'd take the under. He doesn't play all 18 games.
Trevor Harris, even if it's load management, even if there's a little bit, does he play every game this year? I'm saying no. Now, Mayer, perfect. Whoever, if it's Tommy Stevens or whoever else behind that. But it is just, we are learning early in training camp how fragile things can be in the CFL.
They're like that anywhere. It's not just the Roughriders. And you know what? Like I said earlier, the sky isn't falling. Now, Sean McEwen, he's a pro. He prepped. He was ready to play. He came in. And unfortunately, in the midst of a drill, tweaked something, for lack of a better term, right? That's tough. It happens. And it happens to everyone. Like Dalton Schoen is just coming back with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, for instance, right? He was lost for the entire year last year. Now, when it comes to offensive linemen, I'm bang on with you, Stephen, and the fact that it's frustrating, and the fact that you just keep looking and, oh my gosh, another one just went down. It was at times disbelievable. Like you wouldn't believe it ever. And to tell you the truth right now, where it's at, I don't think the sky is falling. There's enough depth on the roster. There was going to have to be some very difficult decisions made along the offensive linemen because, like it or lump it, the Riders were not going to take 17 O-linemen into the regular season with them. So there is some depth, there is some talent, and there is some development that is happening. And don't count Edwin Harrison out, right? The offensive line coach is the whisperer. Look what he did last year.
No, I wouldn't count anybody out and all that. And I think still we're deep. It's promising. I think more on the other side. It's like, Barney, slow down. A lot can happen. We're finding that out.
Temper this. Okay, because I don't know if you guys watched that preseason game yesterday. One thing I saw out of the Calgary Stampeders, and you never know who was playing for the BC Lions. There's a lot of guys with name bars never seen before. But the one thing about the Stamps, they played fast, they played crisp, they weren't taking a lot of penalties for whatever reason. Dickinson had them dialed in, and I don't think it's going to be a cake. And that's without Big Play VA, who also likes to throw bad interceptions, mind you. It's rattled around. So it is like everybody has got it dialed up. And that's where I was like, let's just play a few, even the preseason games first, before we start booking Albert Street. We'll rent a tent from Prairie Land Rentals for the Grey Cup parade. Just give us a couple of weeks before we put the deposit down, okay? Just get us through the preseason. Let's see how this plays out.
just to jump on that point for 1 second, and I completely 100% agree with what you're saying, but back to that Calgary BC game yesterday, the Calgary Stampeders, again, they're talking, it's rebuild mode, right? They had 33 players on their roster yesterday that have never played the Canadian football game before yesterday. That was their first game, and the BC Lions really helped them out by taking over 128 yards and penalties in the first half.
It's like they won. It's like they won a chance to go play from Pete's Drive-In. But so on that Prairie Land Rentals, Greg up in Saskatoon texted in, little tongue in cheek. He said, "Do you see the preseason game of BC versus Calgary last night? It looked so Bush League, almost like a high school game."
Oh, it did. That stadium, wherever they were playing, I'm like, this is, and I laughed. They're like, we need a 10th team. No, you don't. You need a stadium, a real stadium somewhere, and then you can put a team. But that looked like it was a glorified college-ish game, right? With the way that the stands are set up and stuff. But I said, for all of the Stampeder players that had never played Canadian football before, with all the rules, and they're intricate compared to American, Dave Dickinson had them dialed in because they were not the penalty machine that BC was, which made, I went, oh, no, I don't want to see that. I wanted to see the Stamps be a mess all over the place. Although that Hundley didn't play well at quarterback, dude is not necessarily accurate. Maybe it was his receivers, but I'm like, they actually look like they put in the prep work.
I didn't watch it, but you're painting a picture here. Like, did they all have the same color pants and helmets and stuff, or was it like a mismatch like that too, like the North-South game, high school style?
It was really weird because they were wearing red pants, red jerseys, and the Lions were wearing their darks too, which is really weird because usually one team is light, one is dark. I'm not as a Stamps.
If you're colorblind, that's a tough day. I got one of my best friends is colorblind. Oh, he is. It's like, yeah, that's hard. Boys are telling us we got a break. Dave, people are driving home right now. Maybe they didn't hear. And hour one, why don't you give us a quick update on the offensive line injuries?
Well, we know that Sean McEwen is going to be out for a while. That was to quote Corey Mace from the weekend. A while to me seems like a long-term injury. So the starting center that we had all projected to be there from the Calgary Stampeders after signing as a free agent isn't going to be available, nor is Philippe Gagnon right now, as he was seen today in a sling. He's getting more imaging done to determine how that's going to look and what the go-forward plan might be for him. So those two offensive linemen are out. Insert Noah Zare back into the lineup as he was signed earlier today. Of course, he was let go and released last week. Zare, though, stayed by the phone, stayed in shape, and Coach Mace, true to his word, said, you know what? Somebody's going to give him a call, and it just works out that the Roughriders did.
Mouse? No.
Dave, in that situation there, it's like being fired from your job and then they call you back a couple days later. I mean, there's obviously pride involved, but it is professional sports. What was the reception like back at training camp today?
He looked rejuvenated. Like he had a bounce in his step. He was going strong. And again, right, if you get knocked down, you got to get right back up. And that's exactly what Noah Zare did. His teammates were there for him. And again, there's a lot of mutual respect between his teammates, himself, and of course the franchise.
Okay. Zach Fry, you had a chance to catch up with him today.
Yeah. Well, Zach, a lot of eyes all of a sudden are on the offensive line. How is the camp coming together for this group?
Yeah, I think it's been good so far. Just got to continue to get better every day, play hard and play smart. It's the biggest thing for us this year.
Now, you came to camp early along with the entire offensive line. Why was that important?
Yeah, it's just important to get those extra reps in to see how guys play. If you got a new guy coming in to see how, they play beside you. So it's just important to get, those reps early to kind of figure out how each guy's going to, fit and just get some good reps in.
If there's anything we learned last year, that versatility is going to be a key with this group, and it's already started. How important is that, and how does that affect your mindset?
Yeah, it's huge just to be able to, play anywhere, and it's huge if you can play anywhere because that means everything in the playbook and everything that's going on around you. You can help guys out. So, yeah, the biggest thing in O-line is just being able to play everywhere and do your job well.
You played left guard, now you're playing some center. What are the differences in those positions for those that are unfamiliar?
Yeah, at center, you're just making those calls, telling everyone where to go. It's more of a mental aspect before that snap of the ball. Then, nothing changes after. Just take that guy and try to push him as far as you can.
Does footwork change at all going from the left guard position to center?
There's a little bit, just because you got to snap the ball, so it's a little hard to, get more vertical off that first step and everything. But again, it's just football, so once you get a couple snaps going, it just becomes familiar for you.
And once you're making those calls, does that engage you further? Does that require extra preparation?
Yeah, I think, anyone on that O-line can play center because everyone knows what to do and where to go. So, if I have a little mental lapse, a lot of the guys will help me out where to go. And I think I'm pretty familiar with the playbook as well. So, I think the guys that we got is going to be good and we all know where to go.
There's the actual snap of the football that's involved, though, too. How does that come about?
Yeah, I was working to this offseason, just being able to play everywhere, right? And it's a little tricky at first, but once you get into a rhythm, you kind of feel how the snap feels. So,
if things are going well for you, how can we tell by watching?
We're scoring points, guys are getting blown off the ball, and Coach Ed isn't yelling.
All good points. Thanks so much for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Coach Ed isn't yelling. Edwin Harrison, the offensive line coach, is like the offensive line whisperer right now in the Canadian Football League. But Zach Fry, again, has jumped into that role, and he seems to have embraced it with both arms and is doing a good job. There's still some work to be done, but so far, so good.
You'd mentioned in hour one at the green and white game that Jake Maier, out of all the quarterbacks, seemed to have a pretty good day. What did Jake do well in your eyes that put him at the top of the quarterback leaderboard?
He was efficient, effective. He didn't force anything, if you know what I mean. He didn't make a play when one wasn't there. He was sure and looked sure and confident in his reads. And then he had a bit of a connection with Deshaun Mims as they found one another a couple of times when plays maybe broke down a little bit. But all in all, I thought Jake Maier looked very confident and ready to go.
Going into the preseason game this week, maybe it's been decided, is this no Trevor Harris at all? He's going to play the following week in Regina, and it's going to be Maier, Stevens, and Cone in Winnipeg. Is that how you see it shaking out potentially?
It's very difficult to say because the reps don't change at practice in the preseason. So, for example, during the regular season, right, you can very easily determine, okay, this guy is going to be going here, this guy's going to be going there. Right now, it's all about getting those reps on tape so that you can learn, grow within the systems. So we haven't seen much yet that would tip the Roughriders' hands on what they're doing. I would be very surprised if Jack Cone doesn't get some playing time, as does Jake Maier. I would be very surprised as well if we don't see a little bit of Tommy Stevens, sprinkled in. But I really think it's probably going to be Jake Maier and Jack Cone, but never say never, because if Trevor Harris says, hey, I want to come in and play a series just like Nathan Rourke did over the weekend, maybe he does that.
Okay. What do you guys think though about AJ Ouellette this weekend?
He's looked fantastic in camp. I'm not playing him. I'd give him a series maybe at home if it was me. And there's a very good reason why it wouldn't be me making that call. But to me, he has looked great. He has looked fast. He's hit the holes hard, and he's been physical once again.
Different than a quarterback too, right? Like quarterback, kinks, going through progression, some new guys. Maybe there's a few new wrinkles and a few new plays, timing, all that. Running back, not that it's an easy position by any means, but if you're hitting the holes right, everything's there. Yeah, like you said.
But you've also got two guys that have been very, very good in camp, and Trent Penix and, of course, Mario Anderson. So I would anticipate fully the two of them getting a lot of reps with the football, and maybe even Thomas Bertrand-Houdon, who got a bulk of the carries today.
As you got one more, and we'll let the man rest again.
Did Dante Myers flash or show it all in that green and white game on Saturday?
He had a couple of opportunities to make plays. Unfortunately, he didn't. And again, it wasn't a step back. It was just he had an opportunity and the ball didn't get delivered properly. Maybe there was a little miscommunication in the route. I think, though, that he has continued to put himself in a great spot to succeed on the offense and on special teams because he's been back returning kicks right now. So Dante Myers definitely one to watch, and I'm sure he'll get a chance in Winnipeg.
I know for a lot of us last year that when he was on the roster, he was that explosive piece downfield that we don't necessarily have. So that's why we're all pulling, a lot of us pulling for him to make this roster.
I said Colson's got it in the book. I predict a big year from Dante Myers. All right, Dave, have a rest. We'll catch up at about 20 after.
Rest when there's wings to eat? Heck no.
Don't start talking. Don't do that to the fellas. Don't do that to the fellas over here. That is our Dave Thomas and our training camp report brought to you by the Red Zone Sports Bar right behind the Travel Lodge in Saskatoon. Hey, Dave, back up in Saskatoon. You look tired today. It's been a long hey, you grind, man. You're up in the morning, you're there all day. Weather today again wasn't fantastic. It's a lot. You do a great job, Dave.
Thanks, Barney. And just so you know, you look terrific, my friend. I love that hoodie on you, the hair. I don't know, everything's looking peachy keen.
Dave, just because we're worried about your physical and your mental health, maybe you should tag along with Barney tomorrow for his physical. He may need an emotional support person because we don't know how it's going to play out. It's been an emotional show right off the bat. There was platitudes. There was sayings that you would see at a Bed Bath & Beyond store that you would get painted, that you'd put up in your living room, that Barney was thrown out. There's been a lot. And interesting.
Yeah, hey. A lot of hard miles, boys. A lot of hard miles on this rig. Dave, you said Colson was saying that you talked to Dan Farthing about that Winnipeg Sasky game at Gordie Howe Bowl?
Yeah, after the green and white game, Dan Farthing and I were walking out of Gordie Howe Sports Complex, as it's known now, in Saskatoon Minor Football Field, and he said, it brings back memories because in his rookie season, the Riders played the Winnipeg Blue Bomber rookies. So it was full contact, full out scrimmage. The only thing you couldn't do was tackle the quarterback. But I said, it must have been like concrete back then. He goes, oh yeah, it was the grass at Gordie Howe for sure. So yeah.
People spraying balls in from the Executive 9 first hole.
Yeah, that's right.
It's funny. My Dan Farthing story, he wouldn't remember this, but I did. I think when they were playing for the Huskies, they just won the Vanier or something. He was my substitute algebra teacher in grade 11. There was a whole bunch of them. I don't know. There was like a math conference. There was a whole bunch of Huskies, and he happened to be our substitute algebra teacher. Not exactly a strong suit. Not that he wasn't a good teacher. That was more me than anything. So green and white game at Gordie Howe. Let's just call it Gordie Howe Bowl. All right. Let's keep it what it was. So you're there. Luke talked about it. Guys, jobs, a lot is on the line besides the bring them out and the fans and the autographs and Gainer and the merch trailer and all that. There was actual business being done from the D line. A lot of new faces, few holdovers, but a lot of fresh faces there. The D line play, from what you were able to see, what was your assessment? Who's standing out? Who's Sean? Who would you like to see more from?
Well, right off the hop, the guy that jumps out is Micah Johnson. Micah has been playing his tail off this camp, and he's playing like he has to earn a job, and I believe that. And, it's an incredible feat when you look at it. Half a dozen coaches on the Saskatchewan Roughrider roster have either played with or against Micah Johnson over the span of his career. So he's obviously doing something right. The motor was going. He was flying around. Malik Carney, I like the way that he looked. Shane Ray, he factored in a little bit. Mike Rose, he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder. So he's another guy that, again, was out there trying to make a statement. Benoit Marion was there. Haba Baldonado. Again, I'm just going down the roster, it seems. But again, the defensive line, I thought, played really well because they were able to get some pressure on the quarterbacks throughout the afternoon.
You had a chance, I think, to talk to a couple of guys. Which ones? Who should we go with this time?
Well, what stood out for me was that A.J. Allen is getting a lot of reps at the will linebacker spot. That shouldn't surprise anyone, and it really didn't surprise me. But the one that did was Jaden Dalkey. Now, these two, they are like, I don't know, you go ahead and you call it butter on bread, whatever you want to say. These guys hang out together and have a good time. And Jaden Dalkey has been moved from the secondary and a defensive back to the linebacker. So I said, hey, guys, come on over. Let's have a chat. And so the three of us did.
It's called 2 for the price of 1 with A.J. Allen and Jaden Dalkey, 2 linebackers. Did I get that right, Dalkey?
Yes, sir. Year 1 of being in the box.
How has that transition, transformation, whatever you want to call it, gone so far?
I'm getting more used to it each day, thankfully to my guy right here, because it's been a smoother transition, not having to relearn the playbook, but they're getting me right on the technique.
So AJ, how are you teaching Jaden to do that?
Just individual drills, man, because obviously, again, he used to play free safety at a high level, so he's got to be able to switch his feet and fix his eyes and things like that. But, we just go through it step by step, day by day, and he's getting better every day, man. He's getting it.
The one thing that I observed and others around me are saying, boy, does A.J. Allen really look comfortable this year. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Both, because I felt comfortable years before. So that means I didn't look comfortable other years. No, it's good. I'm feeling comfortable. I'm feeling confident. Just ready to play some good football.
So tell me, what does this defense need to do to take a step forward? Jaden, you get to go first.
I really don't need it.
There's some new additions, so just making sure that they all are fitting into the unit and fitting into the mindset that we have as a defense. Like where we cover with 12, we stopped around with 12. So just making sure they're all on the same page. With so far, I think they've been blending pretty well.
AJ, same question for you.
And I think my answer will be just honing in on the smaller things, right? The things that lose you games, the penalties, the mistakes, the MAs or missed assignments. The better we correct those and not have those mental lapses, the more games we'll win. So I think having a bunch of the same group for another year will help loosen those or lessen those MAs for sure.
It seems to me that there's a lot more padded play with more padded sessions thus far in camp. Like it and all for it?
All for it, man. Coach Mason's our leader. Whatever he says we need to do, we need to do. So that's my guy. I'm gonna follow him to a wall and to Saskatchewan and Regina, wherever I need to go. So wherever he says goes.
So Jaden, you look like your body has transformed in the off season. Has it?
I mean, it's got taller again. A little bit. Like they did let me know that I was coming in as the linebacker, so I tried to change some of my training to account for that. But yeah, I feel good. I feel good right now.
AJ, you had an off-season workout with the Denver Broncos. What did you take away from that experience?
That the CFL is a great league, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm proud to be a Canadian playing the CFL for sure. And I mean, yeah.
Tell me about playing special teams, though. You both do it tremendously well. You were tied for the league in special teams tackle. How much pride do you take playing on those special teams?
So much pride, man. I mean, especially being a Canadian, coming from the youth sports program at Guelph, it was an emphasis. It's something that we know we must do in order to play in this league. That's how you start. That's how you get your foot in the door. But also on top of that, just the pride of going one-on-one versus someone and kicking their butt and having it on film, it's absolutely beautiful. I love that. I live for that, and just an opportunity to compete on a football field.
Jaden, your coach gave you a shutout with your special teams play today. What does it mean to you?
Which coach? Majuri?
Mace.
Oh, Coach Mace. Nice. Yeah, like obviously it's playing for Coach Majuri as well. Like he's a guy that I don't want to let down, and he puts the time in, and he's very detail oriented, and he cares. So obviously I want to try to match that, and I'm very proud to be a Core 4 special team demon.
Wow, Core 4 in Toronto. That doesn't sit well right now with the Leafs. Sorry, different subject. Gentlemen, thank you for your time in doing this, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So there you go. AJ Allen and Jaden Dalkey. Again, the two of them just like each other, and you get that throughout the roster and inside that dressing room. And yeah, they're both working right now on the will linebacker spot at Roughrider training camp.
Core 4.
That's a tough.
Dave, speaking of special teams, with no Adam Korsak because he retired to take a real-life big boy job, what's the punting situation been like?
Bailey Flint, and oh my goodness, he was kicking with the wind the other day. And so what they do when they're practicing punting, right, when he's actually live kicking, right, very seldom does he kick when there's a cover team drill. But what he does is they go cross field. So he was going cross field, and it was incredible. He would start and say that he was standing on the 55-yard line. He would kick it high up into the wind. The wind would move it over, and it would be fielded right on the numbers at the 50-yard line on the opposite side of the field. I don't know. That's pretty good. That's pretty big wind. But then he does it 4, 5, 6 consecutive times. The guy can place the ball where he wants to. And that's what that drill was all about, was working with the wind and placing the ball where he wants. And him and Brett Lother seem to have a bunch of chemistry when it comes to holding the football for kicks. So those are the two big jobs. And I think Bailey Flint is doing a terrific job at both.
You know, and it's interesting, right? Because Griffith Stadium, pretty wide open. You come back here, and especially if you've ever been down on the field at Mosaic Stadium, the winds howl, everything's different down there. So, and I'm sure they're pros and all that, but that'll be some getting used to. Because basically going from kicking right in the middle of the prairies to in a bit of a bowl.
Yeah, that swirls around, right? And you hear that all the time. And the difficulty there is in the time of day and the amount of wind and where it's coming from.
I had somebody text over the weekend, hey, what happens after the preseason game? And I said back, well, they'll play in Winnipeg on Saturday, then they go back to Regina, and then camp continues from there. So there's a few more days left in Saskatoon, and then you guys wrap up, and then after the preseason game, come home from Winnipeg. Everything is in Regina going forward. So if you haven't been out to check out a practice, if you haven't had time, you've got tomorrow, Thursday, and is there a walkthrough on Friday before you travel, or is that still up in the air?
To be determined. Last year, there was a walkthrough before hitting the flight out to Winnipeg, or I guess last year we flew to Edmonton. This time around, they're just going to wait and kind of see. The weather has been crappy yesterday and today, and it doesn't look much better for tomorrow. So I think if there's an opportunity, they might do a walkthrough before leaving on Friday morning, but that's yet to be confirmed.
Okay.
Yeah. So are we all in agreement? We can talk about this more as the week goes on. Harris, don't take your sneakers. Just take some nice dress clothes to Winnipeg.
If I was going to go and sprinkle like you, Barney, that's where I would go. But again, we know how it's worked out for you lately, so maybe hold off on that.
Man. PGA Championship was bad too, by the way.
But as a Rider fan, give me Jake Maier for 2 quarters. I want first and second quarter. Let's see what he can do with bullets flying, live action, players coming at him. None of these guys have been hit, well, except for once. Then we all know how that turned out. But let's see this, because we want to see this go. I think. Dave, do you think that the coaching staff saw enough of Cone last year? Not the new and improved Cone of this year, but they saw enough last year. But Maier and Stevens are the wild cards. We really haven't seen any live bullets with these guys in the Rider system.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If I was to say, Dave, what are you going to watch for this week? Offensive line, number one, because I would assume that the 5 guys that are taking number 1 reps right now are going to Winnipeg to try to build some consistency and chemistry. So I would suggest watch the offensive line. In the backfield, Trent Penix and Mario Anderson. They both have got 2 different things that they can do. We'll see who takes a step forward. Receiver, right? You talked about Dante Myers. Again, he's making a statement. Keyshawn Johnson has had a quiet camp, not for anything that he's done. He just hasn't seen a lot of balls come his way. So is that where we're going to go with the American receiver position? And then there is a ton of linebackers still in camp and some secondary decisions that are going to have to be made as well, as far as who is going to fit in where. So yes, I've just said watch the whole team, but offensive line, running back, linebacker, and secondary, they're the big ones to watch coming up here on this week here in Saskatoon, and of course Saturday in Winnipeg.
Who are you going to miss most at the Travel Lodge and the Red Zone when you have to leave? You've made friends there, let's be honest.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm going to miss the pool attendant that had a good laugh when Luke went down the water slide. That was good. There's a couple of dandies over here, a couple of gentlemen that are in town from Vancouver that can't believe that we're doing this here, and they're pretty pumped. So enjoying the $15 special. So yeah, there's a lot of people I'm going to miss. Yeah, it's been good. I've been making friends.
So speaking of Luke, last week we were on him about him. He's got a swimming pool. He's invited people over, but never followed through. But then he mentioned he's got a new smoker. But then on social media this weekend, I saw a picture of him, the smoker, and I think the guy that sold him the smoker. He was given free shout outs, free plugs. Why not? Hey, if you got a deal, even better if you didn't pay for it at all. So now there's another layer to this uninvited pool party, that there's going to be some sort of brisket that we're never going to have either. So much like Colson's backyard, the story adds another layer. So I think all Luke needs now is like, Barney, do you have any clients that sell like patio furniture that we get like a tiki bar set up or something like that? You know, like a wicker thing. You know, he could be
Wicker. Outside wicker? No.
Well, whatever. It'll last a season. Don't ask anything more than that.
Let's sit on
smoker,
milk
tiki
crates.
bar.
I've absolutely had my heart broken here. I'm terrible on social media. I'll be the first one to say that. Like, again, I do my best. I have some fun, and I'll scroll every once and again. But I was told the dang smoker wasn't coming until July. So what does that tell you?
That his followers are more important than his play-by-play partner.
Wow.
I guess. Well,
That hurts. That hurts.
Well, hey,
That hurts.
let's remember, boys, he's a big Leafs fan. And
Oh, yeah.
did he lose a bet? We'll talk about that tomorrow with him.
yeah, I suppose any small victories he could take in the past 48 hours, take them when you can. I mean, even if there's personal feelings that are going to, be
All
hurt.
right, David, tomorrow, hopefully the weather's a little bit better for you. Have a good night. Watch some hockey. We'll catch up tomorrow.
Sounds great, boys. Talk to you soon.